Hi students, this is the second lesson for the topic Interest and Depreciation for Stage 5 of the New South Wales curriculum. In this lesson we're going to learn about credit cards. So far we've learned all about the simple interest formula and about simple interest loans. There are four main types of credit cards. There are low interest cards, cards with an interest-free period, rewards cards, and balance transfer cards. Let's look at each of them in turn. So a low interest card. The advantage is the lower interest rate, and it's usually around 10% per annum. Disadvantages, there's no interest-free period, so you pay interest straight away, and there's no rewards. Now, interest-free period card, they're really common. If managed correctly, you pay no interest ever, but it has a higher rate of interest, probably 25%, if you don't pay off your balance in time. A reward card, also very common. You earn points and you get rewards. The disadvantage is a higher interest rate. And finally, a balance transfer card. Now this is where you can take your entire balance from an existing credit card and you transfer it over to a new credit card at 0% interest. So the advantage is it helps get rid of credit card debt, but huge disadvantage, it can become a vicious cycle where you just end up with more and more credit cards. Now I mentioned that there are four types of credit cards, and that's true, but there's also a debit card. It's not a credit card because it is your own money, but it can still be used online like it is a credit card. Advantage being you don't ever have to pay interest on any purchases. Disadvantages, there are obviously no rewards and there's no credit rating, and that can be a big thing. So if you want to take out a bigger loan with a bank, often they will look to see how you have managed your money when you've been using a credit card. So let's look at a real life example. This is an advertisement for a Woolworths credit card. Let's read through it and see if we can figure out what type of credit card it is. And I'll give you a hint, it can be more than one. So we can get a bonus $50 Woolworths e-gift card, and there's a $0 annual fee for the first year. There's 0% per annum for 14 months on balance transfers, so it's a balance transfer card. There's zero liability, that means you're not held responsible if someone makes unauthorised purchases. There's 10% off your shop once a month on selected dates. There's up to 55 days interest-free, so it's an interest-free card. And 4,000 points equals $20 Woolworths shopping card. It's also a rewards card. So it's actually three of the different types of cards. It's balance transfer, it's 55 days interest-free, and it's a rewards card. Let's have a look at an example of the interest-free period. So Julia has a credit card with an interest-free period of 55 days, and it has a statement date of the 3rd of each month. Now remember, it said up to 55 days interest-free. So if she buys something on the 3rd, she gets the full 55 days. If she buys something on the 4th, she's only getting 54 days. So let's assume she buys it on the 3rd. She purchases pet goods for $1,200 on the 3rd of March. On what day does she need to pay her balance in order to avoid paying interest? So we need to add 55 days onto the 3rd of March. Now there's a number of ways to do this. I'm going to go 3 plus 55, that gives me 58, but I'm over into April, aren't I? So I need to subtract the rest of March, if that makes any sense. So it gives me the 27th of April. Another way to do it is to use an online calculator. I would encourage you to have a look at that website, put in the 3rd of March, add 55 days and see what you get. Now every month you get a credit card statement, and it's important to know how to read them. So here's a statement from a credit card. It has a credit limit, this card, of $10,000, and the available credit is $2,754. 31 days in the statement cycle, goes from the 10th of October to the 9th of November. Minimum payment due is $145, and here's the due date. And this is how they work it out. So how they've worked out the calculations. So there's the closing balance and there's the minimum repayment. And down here are the transactions. Now at the bottom of a credit card statement, it says this: minimum repayment warning. If you make only the minimum payment each month, you will pay more interest and it will take you longer to pay off your balance. For example, if you make no additional charges using this card and each month you only pay the minimum payment, it will take you 31 years and 6 months to pay off the balance, and you will end up paying $8,893 in interest. But if you pay $346.14, so they've worked this out on the computer, then it will only take you 2 years to pay it off, and you'll only pay $1,000 in interest, and it will save you $7,800. So it's worthwhile having a look at that and making sure that you make more than the minimum repayment. So let's look at how we use the simple interest formula to work out the interest to charge each month. Now usually the interest is expressed as a daily rate. So here we've got our annual percentage rate and our daily rate. So my question is, how is this rate calculated from an annual rate of 19.8%? And of course the answer is we just divide by 365. So there's our daily interest rate. Here's an example. June spends $1,100 on her credit card. If the daily rate is 0.0822%, how much is she charged for 22 days? All right, we're going to use I equals PRN. Our principal is $1,100. Our rate is 0.0822%, and N is going to be 22 days because these match days and daily rate. Okay, so we don't need to change anything. The only advice I'd give you here is this is a percentage. It kind of looks like it isn't because we're used to 8%, 8.22% being 0.08. Okay, but it's a tiny interest rate because it's a daily rate. So don't forget to put your percent button in. And we get $19.89. Now banks always include the day of purchase when calculating interest. It's a way of them getting a little bit more money. So even if you make a purchase at 10 o'clock at night, they're still going to count that day. So a quick way to calculate the number of days is to use this formula. So we go forward to the next statement date, whatever that is, subtract the date of purchase and then add one on because that's going to help you include the date of purchase and the next statement date. Here's an example. The statement date for Ian's credit card is 14th of each month. How many days interest will he be charged for a purchase made on the 22nd of March? So the next statement date is going to be the 14th of April. We need to figure out how many days in between, plus we have to make sure we include the 22nd of March and the 14th of April. So we're going to go 14th of April, take away the 22nd of March, plus 1. Now we're going to use the online calculator to work this out. So when we go in, we're going to put in 22nd of March and the 14th of April, and we're going to tick this box to include the end date in the calculation. So 1 day is added, and we get 24 days. So let's finish off with how we pay our credit card. So when your credit card statement comes out, a minimum monthly repayment is required. It goes something like this. 2% of the closing balance or $25, whichever is larger. So you would work out 2% of the closing balance, and if it's greater than 25, then that will be what the payment is. If it's less than 25, they kind of round it up to 25. Let's have a look at the statement. Here we have a closing balance here and a minimum payment of $145. Let's see how they worked that out. Karen's final balance for her credit card is $7,245.81. As a minimum, she has to pay 2% or $25, whichever is larger. Calculate her minimum repayment. Start off by working out 2% of that amount, which is $144.92 or approximately $145. This is bigger than this, and so she has to pay $145. Okay, and our next lesson is going to be on compound interest.